Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so very excited to see you. If you hear a bunch of noise, please don't mind. My husband literally drugged me to go hang out with him while he's riding dirt bikes with his buddies. So I'm here by myself in the car and everyone around me is in their little buggies and their four-wheelers or dirt bikes, cars, whatever, the whole nine. Everybody's out here. Everybody's ripping around. So it's going to be a little noisy and I do apologize. However, I can't do anything about it. But obviously it is the beginning of February, so that means that I have to go back and I have to recap all of the books that I read in January for you. I did bring them all with me. I know that's really crazy. You're probably going to think I'm weird, but whatever. I did. I brought them all and we're going to talk about them. I don't have any service out here whatsoever, so I cannot log into my Goodreads at all, so I can't remember exactly which books I read first. And I don't necessarily remember the order on the first couple, but we're just gonna roll with the punches. If I find out later on that I mixed them up, then I'll throw it on the screen and let you know. But other than that, I don't remember the order, and also I don't remember the name of one book that I read. And I know that's so goofy. Like, how do you not remember what book you read? I don't, and I can't find it on my Goodreads because, again, I don't have service, so I can't pull it up. And I also didn't take any type of picture of the cover, so I don't remember what it was. And I think I already deleted it from my Kindle library. I'll double check because, you know, I might as well, but to the extent of my knowledge, I'm pretty sure I got rid of it. Yeah, I did. Look at me go. It's okay. I will throw a picture of it up on the screen. I did read it on my Kindle, so I'll show you what it was. I don't remember what it's called, so whenever I get to it, you'll know. You'll know. So the first book that I read in January, I believe, I read The Silent Patient. I have one of my cousins. I think she's my cousin somehow, some way. I don't know exactly how, but she was reading this book. She told me that it was fabulous. I will say that this was one of the first books that she's read. I think this was like third. I think she read The Housemaids by Frida McFadden or something like that. Those two books, and then she read this one, and she said she absolutely loved this one. It was so good. She told me that I needed to go ahead and read it. Now, I will say I did thoroughly enjoy this. I did really like it. However, it wasn't necessarily my favorite thriller book out there. I think that there's other thriller books out there that have a lot better plot twists that are a lot more intriguing. I don't think that the journey of getting where we got to was that incredible. To me, it wasn't boring by any means, but it just wasn't necessarily the most entertaining thing that I've ever read. I think that for someone that is new into reading, the plot twist would absolutely just trip them up to no end. I will say that it did get me for a little while, and then once we kind of got to the end, and they started explaining kind of what was going on from the male therapist, what is he called, a physiotherapist, I don't know, something like that, whatever he was, the therapist guy. Once he kind of started talking more about his past and the backstory that involved him, I kind of put two and two together, and I was like, okay, I kind of see where this is going, possibly. And then it ended up going there, which I'm not mad about at all. It definitely was a very... Hold on, I need to take a picture of the boys. My apologies, the boys just came back and my camera did whatever, so I had to fix it. But anyways, we're back on track. I don't remember what I was saying, of course, but I know that I was talking about The Silent Patient. I did really like this. I could see how you could love this book if you were just kind of getting into reading. To me, I think that there are other books out there that have a lot better plot twists that are more exciting and that really just get my heart thumping. This one wasn't necessarily that. It was kind of just more on the laid back, relaxed kind of thriller side. I do think that it was a very interesting plot twist. Obviously, like, at the very end, I expected what happened. It definitely wasn't bad by any means. I still really enjoyed this, and I still think that this one was a lot better than some of the other thriller books that I've read. But I think that at the end of the day, this definitely wasn't, like, my favorite by any means. I've read a lot better before this. I'm sure I'll read a lot better after this. And in the same way, I'm sure that I will read plenty of other books that are worse than this one as well. But I liked it. I thought it was a good length. I feel like the way that I thought about this was that we were going to be dealing a lot more with Alicia. I think that's her name. Alicia, whatever it is. I thought that we were going to be getting a lot more of her in the book, and I don't think that we got a ton of her. It was more just the psychotherapist. Yeah, that's what it is. Psychotherapist. It was more just dealing with him and how he dealt with her and kind of his job in the psych ward and stuff. At the end of the day, I did enjoy this. I think that this was a good book to get back into reading for the beginning of this year. I liked it. I don't want to say that I didn't like it by any means, but it wasn't the most exciting, thrilling. It didn't have me on the edge of my seat at all. It was more just like, okay, you know, she killed her husband, she doesn't speak, and then we're just trying to figure out why. But it's not that captivating, I guess. I don't know. Again, it's not bad. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed reading this. I've heard a lot of people say that it was slow, it was really boring, whatever. I don't necessarily agree with all that, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't my favorite. I don't remember what I rated this. I think that I gave this one a 3 stars. I honestly could see it being like a 3.5 to a 4, but I think that I would just keep it at a 3 stars because, again, it wasn't necessarily the best book that I've ever read. It was good, but it wasn't anything that I would rave about. I probably wouldn't recommend it to that many people. Maybe if you're like just getting into reading or you're wanting to pick up a thriller book for the first time, then maybe, but I think as a whole, I just wouldn't really gravitate towards recommending this to anybody just because I didn't have many strong emotional feelings towards the book while I was reading it. Then I picked up Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I got this one as a book of the month, obviously, but I really thought this one was interesting. I don't think that I've ever read anything like sci-fi before. At least I think that this is sci-fi, I'm not quite sure. This one is about like a family man. I don't remember where he worked necessarily, but I think he was a professor or something like that at a college. So he was just living his normal life when all of a sudden he gets kidnapped, I'm pretty sure. He gets kidnapped and then he gets taken to an alternate reality where he wakes up and he is this famous like scientist that created a way to time travel, essentially. So he's trying to figure out how to get back to his reality, just his whole journey getting there and getting back to his family. So I never in a million years thought that I was gonna be a sci-fi girl. Anytime I think of sci-fi, I always think of like Star Wars and like Star Trek and stuff, and it's just, that's not my jam. I can't get behind that, unfortunately. I don't get it. So for me to pick up a science fiction book, I guess I was just not in my right mind. But I remember reading the front of this thinking that it sounded pretty interesting. It sounded different. Well, it ended up taking me a long while to actually get going on it, but I did decide to finally pick it up, thankfully, and I really enjoyed it. Nick is coming back. Hold on. Oh my goodness, it's gonna be like a miracle if I can actually get this done. My goodness. Anyways, per usual, I don't remember what I was talking about. I definitely thought this one was really cool. I thought that the premise behind it was really interesting, and I'm one of those people that very much does not understand like any other type of like dimensional stuff. Like I watched what is that movie called? The one with Now I don't even remember his name. Matthew McConaughey, the one with the Interstellar. That's what that movie's called. I watched Interstellar and I just don't get it. I never understood that movie. I don't understand like the concept of their time. I don't understand like literally any of it. It's so confusing to me. And this was kind of like that. I didn't really understand their timelines. Then, not to mention, whenever he would go into these different realities, they were all different. There would be this would happen in this one, and this one would happen in this one. The premise of it was that every choice that you make leads you somewhere, and it's just the world with different choices being made. So there's pretty much like an infinite amount of different like worlds that they have, and he's just kind of trying to figure out which one is specifically the one that is his reality. So it's very confusing and very complicated, and it definitely was a very difficult book for me to picture in my head. I couldn't really just sit there and grasp what was going on. Not that I was confused necessarily, it was just a very sciencey, technical, logical, like type book, and for me that gets a little complicated sometimes, but nonetheless I still think that it was really, really good. Again, I don't really remember what I rated this. I think I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. This is so ridiculous. I wish I just had my Goodreads that I could just go back and look at, but I don't remember. I'll end up just putting it on the screen. You'll definitely be able to see what I gave this, but I enjoyed this. I thought it was really good. I don't know if I gave it a high rating or not, just because it was a little confusing and it was different, but I still enjoyed it. I thought that the differentness The uniqueness of the book was definitely very fascinating. I really liked it as a whole. And I feel like if someone is wanting more of a sci-fi book, this one would be a good one to recommend just because it's not too science fiction-y. It's not like punch in the face like, hey, this is like, just, you know, whenever things get science fiction-y and then it's like, it's obviously fiction, so they can do literally whatever they want. They can add like all types of technology, all types of different worlds, and it just gets complicated. This isn't that. It's more just real world-esque, but someone creates the ability to travel interdimensionally, and that's what they're doing. So the timelines of that get kind of confusing, but other than that, it's fairly simple. I'm definitely glad that I finally read this one. I think that it lived up to my expectation of it. I really liked it. I'm glad that I got to it. I'm trying to figure out where I can put this book without it like glaring pink in my face. So after that, I started And Winter Came to Henry's World. I believe that's what the title of the book is. This one was... I really don't know what this one was. This one was about a boy and his house burnt down on Thanksgiving, so him and his sister have to go live with his grandpa. His dad does not want them to go live with the grandpa for a reason that we don't really know. It's kind of like we'll find it out later in the book, but as a whole, we just don't really know what's going on yet, what the deal is with that. So they get to the grandpa's house. He starts acting kind of weird. He's got some kind of odd things going on in his house, but they try to just steer clear of it. But then they decide to sneak out one night, and they go and they find this like guy or something. I don't think he's a guy. He's more like a monster, but he's like locked up in this prison like way out in the woods. And basically, they end up, like, opening up a portal door or something like that, and then there's all these, like, monsters and stuff that try to attack them. I don't know, it was kind of complicated. I definitely think this is more of a YA book. You will see me talk about this more. I made a Reading Winter Books for a Week video. That one should be coming out shortly after this one. It was just so odd. I don't know what I thought it was going to be. It just felt very young. I felt like I was too old to be reading this, and that I just wasn't quite understanding the quirks and stuff of it being a YA book. I really don't know. It didn't hit for me, honestly, and I didn't care for it that much. Also, I didn't know that this book was going to be part of a series. I thought it was just going to be a standalone book. So by the time I got to the end, the questions weren't really answered for me, and I knew that I wasn't going to continue with the series, so it just kind of was a weird ending, in my opinion. I gave that one a 2 stars. I did not care for it. I really don't have much to say about it because I kind of just blocked it out of my memory. I do feel extremely guilty, though, because I think that, I don't know if it's a debut novel, but it's been out for, like, a few weeks by the time I read it, and so I was the second person to rate it. I gave it a 2 stars, and when I got to the point of giving it a 2 stars, one single person had read it and rated it before I got a chance to, and she also gave it a 2 stars, so now this book is sitting at like a 2-star average rating, and I feel really guilty. I feel like it's my fault, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. I didn't like it. I didn't care for it. It was not my favorite by any means, and I you know, I'm gonna rate it how I feel accordingly. None of that 3 stars. I don't know if y'all have seen that video where the girl's like, I don't care if you hated the book, you at least need to give it a 3 stars because somebody wrote it. Like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna play that game. Like, I will give a book 1 star if I don't like it, because I need to be able to keep up with my rating. It's not like about you necessarily. Whatever. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna do my thing. I gave it a 2 stars. Sorry, I did tank the rating a little bit, but I didn't like it. Then I read Winter Garden. I actually really liked this book. It did surprise me. This one was basically about a set of sisters that grew up with a mom that did not speak to them. She didn't really care for them. They didn't feel loved by her or anything like that. And essentially, their dad was the one holding the entire family together. He really wanted the family to get along, to connect, to laugh together, just to really be a family and just connect with each other, but it never really happened. So when their dad dies, they have to figure out how to build a relationship with their mom on their own. And the one request that the dad gave was for the mom to tell one of the fairy tales that she told the girls growing up and the full story, and he made one of the other daughters promise that she was going to get the mom to actually tell them the story. The story was like a fairy tale, but it ended up being like a real life type thing, and you're really just trying to figure out what happened in this fairy tale and how the fairy tale relates to the mom's feelings about the children. It's definitely not like just a fun, exciting book. It's more of like a heartfelt historical fiction book. It's honestly kind of upsetting if if you have deep feelings about like wars and stuff like that, the wars tearing apart families, just the whole nine, it definitely was not the nicest read ever. It was very emotional and impactful. I will say that. I did like it, but it definitely wasn't like a lighthearted read, I guess. I listened to a lot of this on audiobook, and then I would pick it up every now and then and just kind of read it. I do think that this was an audiobook book for me. It wasn't necessarily something that I would care for reading myself just on my Kindle or anything like that. It was a little bit difficult for me to like read on the page and actually comprehend everything that was going on. You know, sometimes you get those books where you're reading it and you're like following along and you're thinking about it in your head, but it's not sticking. It's kind of just going in one ear and out the other ear. That's kind of how I felt reading this book. So if it wasn't for the audiobook, I don't think that I would have been able to finish it. I will say the first like 50% is not slow necessarily, and it's not like world building, but it's kind of world building to their world. It's just I mean, any book is like this obviously, but like it's basically just explaining kind of like the childhood up until like the present day ish, and then giving all the backstory to what the main bulk of the story is. And then once you get about 50% of the way through, then it's actually like, okay, here is what needs to happen, and we're just going to continue learning about what the ending is, and then they hit you with the ending. So I don't know. It was good. I did really like it. I think that the last half of the book definitely saved it for me. If it wasn't for that last half, I probably would have given it a 3 stars, but I ended up giving it 4 stars because it was really good. I did really enjoy it, and it definitely was very pulling on the heartstrings, very emotional. I liked it. I thought it was a really sweet story. It definitely was sad at times, but at the end of the day, I thought it was really good. And I think that I would recommend it to somebody if they're wanting more of a historical fiction type book, because it definitely didn't feel like it was anything real. It didn't feel like I was reading a textbook of like somebody's journey and stuff like that, but it did feel like I was reading a story about someone that kind of like went through that. I don't know. It was good. I liked it. Then the last book that I read is that one book that I don't remember what the title is. It's somewhere over here or over here, wherever I'd put it. It's probably going to be over here. This one is basically a girl. She decides to move into a house that her grandma used to own. Then she passed it down to her parents. Then the parents passed it down to her. She moves into this house. She decides that she wants to open a back secret door that her grandma had put up so nobody could access this room. So nobody knew what it was, and she decided that she wanted to go ahead and tear down the wall so that way she could turn that into like a master suite. So she knocks down the wall and finds a bunch of unseen, unreleased, undiscovered paintings from her grandpa that was like a famous painter. Well, after she finds those, there's a bunch of weird stuff that keeps happening throughout the house, and she's trying to figure out what the paintings have to do with what's going on with her house while she's worried about people stealing the paintings. That was probably a terrible explanation. I feel like there was so much more in this book, but I really have a hard time explaining things without giving stuff away. I just wish that I could be a complete spoiler channel. That's what I really need to do, but I mean, not everybody's read these books, and if you're like, oh yeah, like that could sound cool, then like you're not gonna watch it. But I didn't care for that book that much. I think that the way that they took the book definitely wasn't my favorite. I'm not a big like paranormal type thing, and that's kind of the way that they were shifting the book, and I'm not really into reading books like that. I don't love hauntings. I don't love ghosts. I don't love demons, like the whole nine. I just don't care about that stuff. I would rather what is happening in the book actually be happening in real life, not necessarily like, oh yeah, there's a ghost in my house is haunted, because I just feel like it's kind of goofy, but you know, to each their own. So I think I gave that one a 2 or 3 stars. I don't remember. Again, it will be up on the screen. You will be able to see, because I don't remember right now, but again, just not my favorite. I probably would not recommend that. I literally started reading another book and just completely forgot what that one was about, and if I didn't sit here and like actually think about it, I wouldn't remember in the slightest. The last book that I read this month was Under the Whispering Door. I really thought that this book was super sweet. I thought that the premise, I wasn't going to love it that much just because I'm not like a big Grim Reaper type thing. I'm more like religious when it comes to like death and stuff like that, so it wasn't necessarily like my ideal afterlife type thing, obviously, but I think that even though I didn't necessarily agree, like, oh yeah, like, whenever we die, we're just gonna go, like, walk through this door, and it's just gonna be some unknown thing, even though that's different than what I think, it doesn't mean that this wasn't good. Sometimes whenever I read stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, I don't really agree with that, it's kind of hard for me to get into the book, because it's just kind of like, I just don't really, I don't know, man. I'm not like on the same page as you, so it's just hard for me to actually like get into the book. But with this one, I was thoroughly surprised. I don't know going into this. I know I read the back of this and I thought it sounded good. That's why I got it, obviously. But going into it, I didn't reread the back of it, so I didn't necessarily know what it was about. I just know that it said that death is only their beginning, like up on the front here. So I knew that it was going to be about death. But it thoroughly surprised me. I enjoyed the way that he kind of learned about all the things that he did wrong in his actual life, and then now that he's in like the afterlife, he's kind of righting his wrongs. He's doing things for other people. He's doing things that he didn't necessarily do in his living life. And he's kind of just becoming a whole new person. He's becoming a much better person. He's learning to show empathy for other people. He's compassionate towards others. He's helping people get to where they need to be. He's like sacrificing his own self for these other people to be able to kind of cross over. And it's really interesting to see how he went full 360 in that aspect, because at first he was like totally ruthless, firing his employees just because they like made one little mistake or possibly made a little mistake. And then to go from that to, hey, now I'm going to do other things for other people. I'm going to go out of my way for people. I'm going to try to help people when there's nothing in return for me. I thought that him kind of learning those lessons and him kind of altering his mannerisms in order to better use those new abilities that he's found, it was just sweet. It was very wholesome. I did really enjoy this. I liked this one so much. I definitely liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. By the time I got into it, I was like 3 chapters through and I was like, okay, like I think this is going to be pretty good. And then I would read like 1 chapter every night, and then after I did that for a few nights, I was like, I'm not really remembering what was happening at all. I don't know if I'm going to care for this that much anymore. And it took me to actually just get into it and sit down and just start like binging the book for me to actually come to enjoy it the way that I did. So I ended up giving this one a 4 stars, I believe. I liked it. I thought it was really good. It's definitely not something that I've ever read before. I feel like I would definitely read more more TJ Klune books. I do have House in the Cerulean Sea that I have not read yet. I'm kind of wanting to save that a little bit more towards the summertime because I feel like it's more of a summery vibe. I could be totally wrong. These trees look so dead. I don't know. Let me know. Let me know if it's a summer book or if it's not a summer book. And then I maybe can get to it a little bit earlier than I thought I was. But it's got the sweet little pages. But I like this one. I think that this one was really good. But that's all. That's all I got for you. That's all that I read in January. I do think that I am going to be picking up a lot more books come February. I think that my goal is to try to read more books that I genuinely want to read and less books for challenges. I don't know if I've talked about this before. I feel like I have, and I just don't remember where I talked about it. But I feel like I want to prioritize more quality books that I'm reading. I want to prioritize more books that I feel like I'm going to like going into them. I honestly just kind of feel like the last good chunks of books that I've been rating them like 3 stars. I don't really get a lot of 5 stars. I do get more 4 stars and 5 stars, obviously, but like the quality of 4 stars, it's kind of more like on the lower end of the spectrum. So I do want to start reading more books that are more tailored to my taste, I guess, which I definitely have not narrowed in my taste at all, but I do kind of want to try to do that a little bit more. And I think that I'm going to have a little bit more difficult time with narrowing in my taste if I'm reading a whole bunch of books for the Kindle Mystery Challenge, and then if I'm reading like winter books or summer books or, you know, specifically tailored towards the season and or holidays, then that's kind of where I get into more of a reading slump. And I feel like for the past... I feel like ever since that I've started reading books for this channel, I have not necessarily enjoyed reading as much. After taking like a month-ish break from reading, I decided that I really enjoyed reading again. I enjoyed reading those books, but it was more just... I didn't feel obligated to read them, you know what I mean? I think I have an issue reading books whenever I'm obligated to or when I feel obligated, and I think kind of right now I'm in that realm. Not that I am, obviously these are all like my choice. It's my choice to do this, my choice to read these books. I chose the books, you know? But I do feel like I have a duty here, especially with me posting these and stuff, so I do want to kind of step out of my comfort zone. I do still want to be finding books that I wouldn't necessarily pick for myself and kind of see if I can explore a genre that I haven't read before that I do enjoy, that I didn't think that I would enjoy, and also kind of tweak down my books that I don't like as much. I do want to make sure that I have a fine-tooth comb raked through those so I know exactly what I don't like and what I do specifically want to stay away from. So that's just kind of my thoughts, my opinions. I don't really know. I do want to just kind of do a little bit more mood reading, just do what I want. without the pressure of like, oh, I'm reading Valentine's books now, I'm reading winter books now, I'm reading, you know, this, and I'm just picking books from the category just because they fit with what I'm going for. So that's just my 2 cents. That's my little spiel for you guys. We'll see if I get to that, but I do think that I want to keep February more for romance books. That's kind of my idea right now. I do want to just have a romance month and just specifically read romance, because that's not necessarily my favorite. I'm kind of like, I do prefer more mystery thrillers. I think that's kind of where I thrive at reading. I enjoy those a lot more. They're definitely a lot more hooking, but when I find the right romance book, I am hooked. So we'll see. I've got some stuff on my sleeve. Just stay tuned so that you can see what we have in store. I'm very excited for it. But those are all the books that I read in January. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you want to read any of them. If you have read them, let me know what your opinions are. Let me know if you agree with these ratings. Just, again, anything. I love, love, love hearing your opinion. But I finally got through the video, thank the Lord. No more interruptions. I'm just done. We're good. I'm gonna go read some more books, maybe do a little fishing. We'll see what I got going on here for the rest of the day, because I got till sunset. But thank you guys so much for being here. I greatly appreciate each and every single one of you. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I hopefully will get to see you in the next one. See ya.